All right, what's going on, everybody? This is going to be a shorter video. This video is long, but I'm not going to go over every single thing because it's about 34 minutes and I got to get to work here. I'm trying to go to work early today, but I'm not going to rush through it or nothing. I got some time. But this is 10 TV shows Christians must stop watching, how Hollywood normalizes sin and hell. And what's funny is I watched this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't even remember exactly when. And I didn't watch it all the way through. I just wanted to see what shows they were going to name. Because it's easy if you know the shows, like what they're going to say about it. Like when he talked about Friends on here and The Simpsons, I think as well. There's some other ones. I can't remember all of them. But I knew what number one was. That's what I thought was really interesting because he said something interesting at the beginning. I'm gonna play it a little bit, then I'll pause it.
The last show on this list is the one that spent 15 years rewriting the character of God himself.
Yeah.
And
As soon as hold on, I'll let it play a little more. I'll run that back a little bit so y'all can hear it.
what they carried into your household may be the most important thing you hear this year. The last show on this list is the one that spent 15 years rewriting the character of God himself. And most believers who watched it never noticed it was happening. Type "God guards my home" in the comments right now.
And it's funny, when I heard that, I knew exactly which one it was, and it wasn't even based off the 15 years. When it said whenever he said rewriting God, I already knew it was supernatural right then and there. That's the one I wanted to talk about. The rest of them I'm gonna kind of skim through. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna just play a little bit of the beginning so you guys can hear what each one is.
What you are declaring is that the threshold of your household belongs to him, not to whatever the screen has been bringing in. Again, God guards my home. Like this video, subscribe, and stay until the very end. Let's start with the most obvious one. Show 1. The title is The Warning. Lucifer ran for 6 seasons on network and streaming television.
I actually didn't watch that show, Lucifer, but that's an obvious one. That's why I said I'm gonna skim through. You guys can watch the whole video. I'm gonna put the link in the description. So Lucifer's one of them.
Has always been the gap between
Pretty
what he appears
obvious.
to be and what he actually is. What made Stranger Things more dangerous than Lucifer
Stranger Things is on there too. And let's go to the next one.
is not a formality. It is you placing the threshold of your household under the authority of the one who built it. Again, God guards my home. Friends did not use darkness at all.
Friends, yeah. That show was all about hookups, like that was a pretty obvious one there. Not knocking him or nothing, just yeah, I never was into Friends. There's other shows I watch, but that one I just never got into. There's other stuff I watched though that I, don't watch anymore that I probably should have never watched.
Approval. Every time the studio audience laughed, so did your living room. 40 years is longer than 10 seasons. The Simpsons did not need your laughter. It only needed your silence.
The Simpsons, that is an interesting one to pick. There is a lot in there, and that so I get that. If you notice, there's kind of like a corniness to Flanders, the Believin' family. But I will say one thing, and I said it in another video. Uh, don't be mad about them doing that, mocking that rapture stuff, because there ain't no pre-trib rapture. I don't know what people are talking about. Like, but then I kind of question: was the show actually doing a pre-trib thing, or was that an after thing? So I don't know. But I'm not siding with no Simpson, no Hollywood stuff. But I'm just saying I don't know what part of that 7 years they were covering was. It seemed like they jumped right to that. So I don't know. It seemed like it was a pre-trib rapture thing, which is not in the Bible.
What The Simpsons did to your grandchildren's understanding of faith, the next show did to their understanding of power. Show 5. The target was your granddaughter. That is the first thing to understand about how The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was built,
Oh,
what audience it was designed for.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I'm guessing he's talking about. Yeah. So yeah, Lucifer, Friends, Simpsons, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I'm missing one. I don't know which one that was, but you guys can watch the video. Yeah, I mean that's obvious, witchcraft, just like Charmed. What was Practical Magic was another one. There's a ton of that. The Craft. I mean that's a movie, but Practical Magic is a movie as well. But yeah, I mean all that stuff. Charm should probably be on the
And most
list.
believers who watched it never once realized what was happening. American Horror Story never needed a
Mm.
teenage audience.
Yeah, I watched it early on, but I never really got into it to where I kept watching it. I was curious to see how that one political episode, or that season when they're talking about the guy, I don't know, some dude who he was like coming into power. Kind of reminded me of the governor and Walking Dead, like the early stuff. I used to watch that like 15 years ago, whatever it was, 12 years back. I don't even remember how long ago. But it was kind of like that. I was curious to see what ended up happening, but I never went back to finish it. So what's the next
Show on
one?
this list never needed a single scene of horror to accomplish its damage. Show 7. 20 seasons is not a run, it is a residency.
Mm,
Grey's Anatomy has been
mm.
inside American homes since
I don't know anything about Grey's Anatomy. I don't even know what that show's about, to be honest.
Show 8. You watched her cry with guests who had lost everything.
Oh, that's Oprah.
You watched her build schools in South Africa and give cars to a studio audience. Thing about the kind of faith you have chosen to carry. The
You know what's crazy? I never really watched Oprah like that, though. I'd heard them stories giving away cars and stuff, but I never watched her like that. I think the most I ever watched her was when Dave Chappelle went on there, because I used to like watching Dave Chappelle a lot. And this was like during all that going to Africa stuff. And that's the most I ever had watched her. But like I said, I watched other stuff I shouldn't have watched.
two sections still ahead are the ones that hit the closest to home. The shows that entered your household through trust rather than through obvious darkness. And those are always the ones that do the deepest damage. Show 9. No demons. No blood rituals.
Hmm.
No dark lord demanding worship in a subterranean throne room. The Good Place ran for 4 seasons on NBC.
I didn't watch The Good Place, but I heard some weird stuff about it. It was like they twisted up, kind of like what they did in Supernatural, where they twisted up how heaven actually is, and they made it into like heaven was really like hell or something, or like Groundhog Day, redundant type stuff. It was like, what? I was like, I don't know about that. Some people really think that's how it would be. That's why they say they'd rather go to hell. You heard Biggie Smalls say that in one of his songs. Why would he want to go to heaven where the goody goodies are at or something? I don't remember them lyrics, but that something. I remember other songs that he did, but that one I never listened to like that. But I remember he said something like that in one of them songs. He want to go to hell. I don't think demons want to be in hell. Something wrong with folks.
Appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment, not a points review, not a remedial afterlife. Judgment. 4 seasons of warm laughter is not enough preparation for that moment. 15 years of something far more systematic was running on another channel at the same time. Show 10. 327 episodes across
Mm.
15 seasons. That is not a television show. That is the longest continuous theology course most American households have ever sat through. And unlike seminary, it never asked anyone to pay tuition or pass an exam. Supernatural simply asked people to keep watching. And they did, for a decade and a half, while the show quietly dismantled every attribute of God.
Yeah, yeah. It really did. But I don't know. I don't know where. Yeah, they were doing a lot in this show, man. But yeah, changing up the attributes of God. The character named Amara, who was his sister. And when she came back, darkness was released, and because she's the darkness, I guess. And then so he went off and hid in this like bar, and it was like where no one could find where he was at. He had himself like covered, protected, where no one knew where he was at and couldn't find him. And he sent the Megatron, that character, or Metatron. Is it Metatron? Not Megatron, Metatron. Still sound like some Transformer stuff. But had him, he like, snapped his fingers, brought him to the bar, and he was talking to him about, well, where have you been? And he's like, well, you know, I had some girlfriends, had some boyfriends. Like, God, what? That's insane. God don't do all that. And they had like whenever that whole conflict was resolved with him and his sister in the show, they had him go off with his sister. And they're talking about he was off on a like a rendezvous or something, like he was hooking up with his sister type incest stuff. I was like, see, it's too much activity. And they just turned him into like just a evil character. And then at the end of this show, because the devil ended up having Lucifer's character, the devil, he ended up, I think, getting into the body of this politician. It might have been the president actually, and he had a baby with the one girl, so that's going to be what Antichrist type thing. And his character's name is Jack. And at the end of all this, Jack ends up, they turn him into like this vacuum of power, right? So he just, everything he goes around, he takes the power, he like consumes the power of everything. And so when God's beating up Sam and Dean at the end, because they didn't do what he wanted them to do in the show, so he starts beating them up and beats them down pretty bad. And Jack's sitting there like a vacuum, just sucking in all that power from God. So then when God's about to kill them and snap his fingers and kill him after he beats them up, he can't do it because Jack vacuumed his power. And this is like an Antichrist character. This is the type of stuff they did in the show. So then he becomes God, Jack does. But he don't kill off the character they had portrayed as God. He don't kill him off. He makes him live lonely for the rest of his life or something like that. Which was kind of like, what? What are we talking about? What are we doing? Well, ain't no me and we. What are y'all doing? What are you talking about? This show was just, oh God, supernatural. Watched it from the point where Lucifer and Michael had their true vessels, which is Sam and Dean, and Sam's Lucifer's vessel, and Dean is Michael the Archangel's vessel. And they have to say yes so they can take on that vessel. They have to get a yes from that agreement. But they just twist up so much. They really do.
The premise involves two brothers hunting demons, ghosts, and supernatural threats across America. In the early seasons, the show borrowed the framework of spiritual warfare without its substance. Demons were real, evil was real, and the brothers fought it.
Yeah, and they did, and they were doing weird stuff like using spells themselves to fight it. It was like fighting like evil with evil. It was really bad. It was like really bad.
That framework made the show feel adjacent to a Christian worldview. It was not.
Similar to Charmed, actually. Now that I think about it, they were doing all kinds of weird stuff. And you got to ask yourself too when they were doing all that in these shows, like, where did you even get that information to do all that? Like, I don't know. Because theirs was a little deeper than Charm. Charm, they put together like these weird little Dr. Seuss rhyme and type spells. Still not good, only good witch is a dead witch. But in Supernatural, they went deeper than that. Because in Supernatural, they were like talking in a different language. Like these might have been like legitimate spells. I was like, what in the world going on in this show? That show got a lot, boy.
It was the setup for something far more systematic. By the later seasons, God himself had become a character.
Yeah.
And the God of supernatural is petty,
Yeah.
absent,
Yep.
manipulative,
Yep.
and ultimately self-serving. Angels are incompetent bureaucrats
Yep.
or outright villains.
Yeah.
The
That's
brothers repeatedly succeed where heaven fails. The entire architecture of the show moves toward a single conclusion. Human courage and human love are more reliable than divine authority. And
that's exactly what they did in that show. That's exactly what they did, dude.
the God of Scripture is not worthy of the trust his people place in him.
That's what they did in that show.
Romans chapter 11, verses 33 and 34, stands at the opposite end of that conclusion. Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable his judgments, and his paths beyond tracing out. Who has known the mind of the Lord? That is not a God who can be written into a television script as a disappointing father figure. That is a God whose character does not bend to fit a narrative.
Yeah.
Micaiah stood before 400 prophets who had described a God willing to send Israel's king to a comfortable victory. 1 Kings chapter 22, verses 19 through 23 records his response. He had seen the Lord seated on his throne, and he would not misrepresent what he saw regardless of the cost. Those 400 prophets were not atheists. They were people who had constructed a version of God shaped by what the king wanted to hear. Supernatural spent 15 years doing the same thing,
Yeah.
shaping a version of God that relieved the audience of awe, of reverence, of the particular weight that Isaiah chapter 46.
That's actually a really good point too, because I ran into people who they have existence belief, but not they don't really have their faith in God. Not really, not even ye of little faith. They don't have any. No, they don't. And they really they'll take shows like this and portray it like every single thing they're putting in there is true, or they'll just take whatever they want to believe as the truth and just be like, yeah, that's how God really is. Well, I think that's how it is. I'm like, okay, dude.
Verses 9 and 10 demands, I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. A show that spends 15 seasons arguing otherwise is not entertainment. It is a 15-year argument against the foundation every believer in this video is standing on. There will be a moment when every hour of television ever watched is simply part of the record. Not hidden, not forgotten, just there, alongside every warning received and every door that was opened or kept shut. That moment does not leave room for the explanation that it was only entertainment. You have just received 10 warnings drawn directly from Scripture and from the specific shows that have been shaping the spiritual atmosphere of American households for decades. That is not information you stumbled across. That is God, in His mercy, giving you what Ezekiel's watchman was given. Sight before the damage goes any deeper. Psalm 101, verse 3, is the decision this video has been building toward. I will not look with approval on anything that is vile. Not a rule imposed from outside. A declaration made from inside a life that has decided who it belongs to. Subscribe to Bible Wisdom Spirit and watch the videos waiting for you next.
Yeah, I just wanted to cover that a little bit. I'm gonna trim this video down because right now it's at like 23 minutes, but I'm not gonna have all that on there. But yeah, I just wanted to go over that supernatural show and hear what he had to say about it. And that is true, man. That show was probably the worst one that they did. From a biblical standpoint, how God really is, it was a horrible show. Even the portrayal of the angels, just I ain't even gonna go back into that. That show is terrible. And people really want to believe that stuff to be true. But anyway, go ahead and get off here. I gotta get to work. So may the Lord continue to bless us all, and God willing, I will catch y'all later.